Hey there, Suyen. You're looking really, really busy.
Yeah.
Your desk is looking more like an artist's workshop. What are you working on at the moment?
We have been working on this for a while. It's the Jade Emperor's Hate. We are going to use this for our event, and we are going to introduce Jade Emperor to children properly, and so people could experience how it feels when they wear this on their face. That is, it's handmade. And can you imagine it's made of garden pot, flower pot.
The basis is a garden flower pot.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That looks like a lot and very, very detailed work. And it's obvious how much passion you put into this. Is it because you enjoy making things so much, or is it the subject matter, something from back home, which energizes you?
I enjoy making things by hand. I enjoy doing these kind of things to be creative, and then we can do more research and to know more about our own culture and history and background, and keep some important elements while being creative and artistic. So that's actually my interest.
Can you tell me a bit more about Jade Emperor? Why did you choose him to feature in Snowflake Books? And how do you do your research? Do you look in old movies, or is it old legends that maybe your grandmother told you for bedtime story?
Because Jade Emperor is quite important in Chinese culture. Most of our legends and the stories are influenced by Taoist ideas, and I think he is nearly everywhere. From each story you can see his name. The legend said the Jade Emperor held a special animal race. The first 12 animals could give their name to the Chinese years, and that's why we thought it would be interesting for people to know more about the Jade Emperor. But in the story, because those animals are main characters, so we didn't really say much about the Jade Emperor. And I thought maybe during the event, children could learn about him naturally by looking at the costumes and by wearing his hat and looking at all these kind of decorations, and then they can enjoy the story more.
That's a really, really clever idea to make a central character more important for your events. Does the yellow ribbon and the bead strings mean anything? And also, you mentioned already that talking to the people who turn up to your events, you really enjoy interacting with them. What do you learn from talking to them?
These kind of ribbons across the board actually means sky river. So it symbolizes sky river. And this bead strings, we usually have 9, because 9 is the highest number of all. After 9, it returns to 0. And also, when you are wearing these, you have to keep straight, looking straight, and you can't really move around too much. It reminds the emperor to be dignified. Look at this side. The front, actually this. The front side is a bit lower than the back. It reminds the emperor to be humble.
He needs to keep his eyes low down.
Yeah, this is correct. At least.
I find it fascinating that you guys in the Eastern culture have completely different characters to our children, what we grow up with, provided of course that they are lucky enough to even read books and come across any characters. We have, for example, Little Red Riding Hood or Father Christmas, and then we've got this nasty stepmoms.
Yeah.
You've got emperors, dragons, horses, and your own favorite, of course, the turtle. What do those characters mean?
Those animals and the people and the characters, they could be existed in the past, in the history. Like those animals, usually people, sometimes they will just build a water buffalo temple near to their rice field, because they just try to remember their hard-working water buffalo. And it's a sort of tradition to build temples for their beloved animals or people. So for us, when we read the stories and when we look at the temples, sometimes we could just feel they are so real. So those characters for us, they're just not religious, but it's a feeling between people and their animals. So it's quite different, I think.
That's really fascinating for us Westerners, and there's so much to learn from the symbols and from the little details that would be impossible to guess if one only was reading the book. So you learn a lot of additional stuff going to your events, quite possibly. What is obvious though is that the Snowflake Books team handles whatever they do with much care. Just looking at this, the amazing works that goes in there. But let's stay with the creation of the pictures as well for a second. It's obvious that they are not quick or cheap copies from the internet or careless templates, right?
Yeah, those pictures. Did you see these from Ashmolean Museum? The style is from Ming Dynasty. We try to do the research and we try to find something from the history, from the museums, and we want to introduce the stories and the backgrounds about these characters. So we actually do a lot of research and we try to make our drawings attractive for Westerners, because sometimes Chinese paintings or Chinese style paintings are a bit too alien to English people, so we try to make more colors to add more. And that's why we have to talk a lot with our English friends to see how they feel about those pictures. If they don't like them, we possibly will have to do everything again. Or if they can't understand the stories and they can't really find any help or any useful information from the pictures, we will have to add some more elements to the pictures to make them understand and acceptable.
I mean, for somebody like me who was brought up in the Western world, it definitely helps if somebody who knows both cultures steps in and explains a lot about that and translates the different cultures and obviously the language as well. Passing on old legends as you do now, has that always been your dream?
No, I actually didn't pay much attention to our own culture when I was in Taiwan, because I don't know, in Taiwan we don't usually appreciate what we have. But since I came to the UK, I studied here, I realized that we have to learn to respect our own culture to be respected by others. And I only come here to study for my master's. It's quite hard for me to just follow English culture and ideas and pretend I'm not from Taiwan. It's not possible, and people ask me a lot of questions. Like yesterday, about why we have this story. Yesterday it was Mid-Autumn Festival and it's Moon Festival. People will ask you,
Moon Festival?
Moon Festival, yeah. So people will ask you, when you were in Taiwan, how did you celebrate Moon Festival? Then you have to think very hard about stories and about costumes and about all these kind of things, and you want to share this with people correctly and with some interest. So you have to study a lot, and gradually I realized I need to know more about myself, and also the way I speak, the way I talk, and the way I think is all influenced by my past. So it's quite interesting to know that we have our own rules.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think or to appreciate how you say you learned a lot about yourself and your own culture since living away from it.
Yeah.
So what do you think would be important values for Chinese or Taiwanese people that you realize now living here, and which ones have you picked up from the British people living here?
I think what I learned from English or from British people is we really need to appreciate what we have from the past, and even if the history is not so pleasant, or if we don't really agree with anything, but it's all part of us. And I think for us from Taiwan or from China, when people look at us, it's quite difficult for us to tell people that no, I know nothing about my culture, I don't really celebrate Chinese New Year, I don't celebrate any kind of festivals like this. People will feel very weird, and they thought, we would like to know more about you, just like you want to know more about us. It's sort of mutual communication. So I think to live in the UK or live in the world as a world citizen, it's better to know more about what we have learned from we were young, and then we have more to share. That's my idea.
That's very, very true. You also mentioned in your book that you learned a lot from your English tutor when you came to Oxford. Can you tell me a little bit about that friendship?
Yes, the first year when I came here, I didn't speak English, and I didn't know about England, and I didn't know much about English culture, and I only came here to study for my master's, and I studied spatial planning, and I thought that's all. And after I got my degree, I would just go back to Taiwan and to carry on my work, and that's my life. But since I started doing it, I realized it's not possible to learn anything in depth without knowing about the language very well and the culture. Then I met Roy Priest, my tutor, and he started sharing his culture, English culture, including poems, English poetry. And I was thinking, English poetry and poems, it's actually nothing to do with my degree, and it's not my subject. And I thought my English was not good enough to appreciate all these kind of things. But then I thought, it's quite expensive to look for a good English tutor to teach you English. If he didn't charge me, it's quite a good chance for me to practice and to learn. So I just took that chance, and I practiced a lot and I tried to think about poems using my own experience. Sometimes I just couldn't understand very well. Then I used my own imagination to think about my past, my stories, my childhood, and when I was reading English poems, and I replied all these ideas to Roy Priest, and he didn't really stop me. And he said, carry on, it's quite good. You don't need any answer, there's nothing right or wrong, you just carry on. And gradually, after my winter vacation, I think, I improved my study. And gradually I understood a lot about what's going on on the course and what's going on in the classroom. And I learned a lot, and I gradually could understand more and more and more. And I got my degree eventually, and I carry on my second master's because of that foundation, I think, because my course leader told me, I think you are good enough to carry on study historical cultivation. I know the course is very English, but I think you will do it very well. Then I carried on, and I got my second master's. That's really sort of lucky, I think, good luck.
You've definitely done a lot of thinking about the Eastern culture and the Western culture by now. So where's your home, would you say?
Oxford, I think. Oxford is my home because my friends are here, and my tutor, and also my books. All this experience and everything is here. And Oxford is such a good place to enjoy reading and the culture and the history. I think Oxford. Yeah.
But you will probably go back and share your knowledge as well.
Yeah.
In the spirit, as you said, to offer all your learning to other people and to your people back home.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.